I was drawn to the project by there are a few elements that I knew. I was attached to the project for quite some time. At one point, I was originally perhaps going to play a different character, so my process with it slightly changed. And I was drawn to it because of David, and I was drawn to it because of the extraordinary talent that I knew David's attachment or creation would then attract. And it's almost like, you know, holding part of something but not seeing it in its entirety, because you don't actually, even if you have the whole script, it's not biblical in the sense that it's ever evolving, right? Yeah. So you're only seeing parts of what the larger creation is, and that's the exciting thing about working with David. It's in a sense, it almost slightly reminiscent of working with Mike Leigh for me, who was the first person that I made a film with. So there was a great ease and comfort that felt very familiar.
My approach to the character, because of David, was to think of the period, like think of what it was like for a soldier in the 1930s, the First World War. And that got me really excited to be able to find out what those soldiers experienced. This whole notion of double victory, you know, and not being accepted. You couldn't even fight for our own country. Certain people that look like me, you know, and the Harlem Hellfighters, the Harlem Hellfighters company. Like I didn't know anything about them, so being able to take a deep dive into that. Charles Houston, who you know, was a mentor who taught Thurgood Marshall. I mean, like, I read his book. Like, it was amazing to know that this Ivy Leaguer also joined, you know, the army to fight for his country, you know, and then came back and fought through the legal system, which was, I had imagined Harold and Charles Houston were colleagues, or they knew each other, you know, so it's fun to be able to play with those kinds of possibilities in the time period.
You know, as I get older, I just, I look for the ways that I can service the story, and you know, if you look back on David's films, you know, they're so character-driven and they have so much heart, and you know, what he looks for is just this truth, this removal of all artifice. And we'd be on the phone sometimes, and you guys know how David could be. He'll take about a 5-minute break on a phone. You think he might hang up on you, but no, he's just waiting, taking his sweet time. I'm like, you still there? He's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm just thinking.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And
it's true, yeah.
And then he'd come in and be like, is this your voice? I'm like, yeah, that's my voice. Yeah, I like that. We should have that in the movie. I'm like, my voice? Yeah, we should have that in the movie. So it was a course of, you know, conversation after conversation on the phone where we just started crafting this character. And you know, at one point, the character of Libby was not as substantial as she is in the film. So we started finding ways as to how to break Tom up into this power couple, this power dynamic, and I think that added a different dimension to who Tom was, because you could easily just try to retrofit him into a certain type of character, and I think the relationship between the two of them makes it just so much more dimensional. And then I said, I want a mustache, and he said, no mustache. And he told me that he goes, you know, Rami, I used to have a mustache, and my son just looked at it and he said, Dad, it scares me. And so he would look at me and he goes, people are gonna be scared by the mustache, Rami. No, they're not. People like the mustache.
It's the most David conversation ever.
That's a very David conversation, but.
I think there are so many themes in this movie, some big, some political, but I think the one that is gonna resonate with audiences the most is friendship. I think love and friendship kind of supersedes everything else that these characters experience in this film. And it is the thing at the end. I remember the first time David showed me a rough cut of the film, he was looking at 2 different ways to end it. And I said, well, that ending leaves me thinking, but that ending leaves me feeling. And I think the magic of this movie is that it makes me feel so many things. I think you should end with the second one. And I haven't actually seen the final cut of the film, so I don't know how it ends, but we'll see.
When you walk out of this film, hopefully you'll be asking yourself, what was that Amsterdam for you? What was that moment where you reckoned with the truest part of yourself? You had emotion, but you also had struggle, and you had these passionate relationships and loyalties that carried you through some of the darkest and most vibrant moments in your life.
You want to take that one first? Or?
No. Well, yeah, mine was based on a character named, a person, a general named, Army general named Smedley Butler. Was it the Marines? I should have known that, but he was after the First World War, and between the First and Second World War, he was quite outspoken about what he felt about war, and wrote a book called War is a Racket, which was unusual for someone of his stature. But he was well loved by the common man, if you will, the soldier that was not any kind of rank, just the most common rank, corporal. They all respected him and loved him, and he stood up for them. And I guess the higher-ranking military, the elite, if you will, were kind of irked by him at times, it seems, because he said these things that were inappropriate for a person of his stature. But he was a hero, and they couldn't take that away from him. He was a genuine war hero, so that was that. So this was all intriguing to me, especially what's going on in our country. And so David presented all this to me, told me what to look him up and read about him and so on, and look at video and speeches he made. So that was what it was.
He's a hell of a character, Smedley Butler. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope people do. I didn't know anything about him either, but oh my Lord, what a man. I mean, that you can make a film just about him.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
You should go make a film just about Smedley Butler. That would be magnificent.
Yeah.
Mine is based on real people, but nobody that anyone else would have ever heard of, at all. There was an art dealer character that David and I have been talking about going back to like 2013. And then David said, come to this Greasy Spoon Diner, and he was telling me about Smedley Butler and this event in American history that neither of us had ever heard of. And our jaws were on the floor, and we said, let's keep looking at this. And we looked at the Jazz Age and the 30s and documentaries, and just started to form an idea of a character that we wanted to hang out with, a character that we would love, and a character we wanted to be friends with. And so we were looking at returning war veterans, and certain photographs you'd see of that. There was a doctor named Shields who my character Bert gets mistaken for quite often. Story of his life, as he says. Little mannerisms that come from my son. Another bloke that I saw walking down the street, and like a stalker followed him for ages, copying his mannerisms and made it into that. You get influences from all over the place, but no one's ever heard of Bert Berenson outside of our film Amsterdam. We keep coming back.
Yeah.
We keep coming back to it. He's original. He's unique. He's a truly great filmmaker in that respect. He has a way of working unlike anyone else I've ever worked with, and the films they're really uniquely his. Like any great filmmaker, you really know this is a David O. Russell film.
Perfect. Everybody was terrific. Perfect. I mean, there were Alessandro Nivola was in it. He had a kind of a supporter. I didn't even recognize him at one point. He was very funny. He had all the actors. I can't even remember the names. They're all terrific. Everybody was special.
Yeah, we were very blessed with the incredible cast that we ended up getting together, and David's got such a skill for using people in a way that, they often haven't been seen before, real. Oh my God, what a pleasure, what a surprise to have all those people come and join us. You know, but most especially obviously with Bob. But you know, coming from just David and me sitting in a diner together, and suddenly, wow, you know, what a cast and what a crew as well. And Chibo, you know, the DP. Just phenomenal. These are like the best of the best. Absolutely. Look, I mean, David was so generous. He invited me into the edit room, so I got to be there with Jay, who's just an absolute master. You know, obviously, I've worked with Chibo a couple of times, and he's a real joy. He's a real artist, and I would just see his just enthusiasm behind the camera going, cabron, you know, when there was like a great scene and tears in his eyes, and he feels it like he's right in there, and you know, he'll be right next to us up close, as is often David's style with that. So his presence was really wonderful. We got Daniel Pemberton doing the music, and so many incredible, unique individuals that just make this a crazily unique film. And there were even lines, like there was a line from Mango, the dolly grip, that ended up in the film. Something he said to David one day, and David loved it, and he was like, Christian, Mango just said this, great, we threw it in the film, you know? Makeup people, phenomenal. Chris Gallagher, oh my Lord. Optimism, staying optimistic no matter what, staying joyful in the midst of miserable bastards, not letting life crush you, not letting life cause you to feel hatred, not letting it make you cynical, you know? So use what happens to you in life to fix yourself and to build yourself stronger rather than be destroyed by it. That's what I love so much about these characters, and it's what I love so much about David's films. Nancy, Bob's dog. Oh yeah. My Lord, Nancy. Who just made the film, stole the film, you know?
Where is she? Nancy? Nancy, where are you?
Here's Nancy. Our little Nancy. Dylan Beck's dog from the film.
Come here.
Thank you. Yes. Hello.
Okay.
If anybody ever gets the chance to work with Nancy, they have to jump at it. It's you know, a wonderful experience. She totally believes in her cat. I always feel like animals and children are the best actors. You know?
They're always great. You never know what they're going to give you, so it's great.
What drew me to the project was David O. Russell, to be honest. I think he's a fantastic filmmaker, and basically I said yes, just based on it being him. Then I read the script, and I actually didn't read the script at first. I talked to him for 2 years, and then I read the script, and the subject matter of, you know, there was how fragile democracy is. And there was a time when we could have lost our democracy before World War II. And how poignant that is to the challenges by authoritarians and ethno-nationalists and fascists, frankly, neo-fascists, that's happening right now is so incredibly timely. But more than anything, I love the method of how he likes to work, which is constant exploration and constant definition. You know, he's very much is, in general, is the enemy of art, and God is in the details. And it just got more and more detailed as it went along. And also the tremendous respect to the actors that David has. He realizes that people go to see movies to see people, and shots are important. That's all part of drawing you into the dream. But ultimately, you want to see people go through a journey. And this has been one of the most amazing experiences of my working life. And if David O. Russell wants me to do anything, the answer will be yes. Just tell me when and what to wear.
Yeah, I remember. So every once in a while, you go see a movie, and you think afterwards, "Oh, I didn't know movies could do that, or be like that, or were capable of doing that." And I felt that way after I saw Flirting with Disaster. I remember seeing that movie and being like, "Whoever made this movie is really, really smart." And then I went and saw I Heart Huckabees, and same thing. So ever since then, it's been a dream of mine to work with David, and so it came to pass on this project. Yes.
So David is very generous, and he has very clear ideas of what he wants for your character, but he also wants to know what invisible ink you can bring to the process. And he was very obsessed that our Michael Shannon and my character be into bird watching, and that it be a key part of it. Very quickly we started to talk about the nature of fascism, and fascism are the cuckoo birds. They steal other people's nests. You know, fascism isn't a economic system, nor necessarily a system of governance. It's mafioso. It takes over other people's nests like the cuckoo. And so once that one big metaphor happened, bird metaphor, we just went crazy with it. Not everything ended up in the script, but that was the way in. And I wanted to play a British civil service person because I've always been obsessed with the permanence and the efficiency of the British civil service. And then we also talked about different movie archetypes of those characters, those catalyst characters, the threshold guardians that make and allow the main characters to go through their journey. And so I love working in archetypes, and I love that sort of stuff. So it was Mana, and I got to give my 2 cents, and it was about agree and add between David and I. It was an unbelievably great experience.
Well, yeah, David really gives you a lot of information going into it. He was sending me books, and I did a lot of reading. I had a lot of catching up to do because he's just so well informed and knowledgeable about this period and this story. And yeah, so I just basically did a lot of reading, getting ready for it. Yeah. Oh, Chivo.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Chivo's like the best DP, one of the top 5 in the world, I mean, right now. And so fast, and so for a cinematographer, very considerate and giving and with the actors.
Very pro-performance, you know what I mean? Chivo, on the other hand, understands that, like all of us, we're in service to a broader dream, of which the performance is one part of it. So he's very conscientious to move quickly because sluggishness for actors, especially if you're cooking, is the death of it. And also at feedback, you know, he'd go, I really love what you did in that scene. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, you noticed. It's nice, you know what I mean?
And the design across the board, the production design, costume design, just so rich. You know, it's hard when you're making a period piece to really get lost in that era, whatever it is, and forget. I'll never forget when I was doing World Trade Center and we were shooting, they had replicated Ground Zero in Marina del Rey, and I was like riding on a golf cart to Ground Zero, and there was like palm trees in the background, and something about it just felt completely wrong. But in this instance, I really kind of forgot. I thought we were somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know,
it's amazing what a great production design does in terms of tricking the outside that then tricks the inside, you know? And you're more with everybody else's vision of the dream, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is fun. I love going into dreams that are, I love that feeling. I used to get this in Toronto all the time, you know, come out of a movie like Enter the Dragon, you know what I mean? And then you go back onto the street and you go, oh my God, I'm back in the world. You know what I mean? Apocalypse Now, Lawrence of Arabia, all of these films that are such complete, immaculate universes that you need to almost go to, is it Wiesbaden in Germany, to decompress from one world before you get into the real world, you know? And I think this movie does that.
Well, I mean, as you were saying, Mike, earlier, is a film about loyalty, really.
Yeah.
And what an incredibly valuable virtue loyalty is, and how important it is to hold on to it.
Yeah, loyalty is the string theory that keeps everything together. That you can trust people. Trust is the basis of all relationships. Trust and respect. And I think if you were to look at the base molecules of this movie, it's about trust and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about a democracy is that democracy, when it works, is a trust and respect machine. And while there's a lot of inefficiencies with democracy, it always remembers to protect trust and respect. And that's why, even though there's a lot wrong with democracy, there's everything right with democracy.
Yes. Christian and I really wanted to make a movie about friendship and loyalty through all kinds of circumstances, an epic story about two very close friends and a woman who joined them as the third part of that friendship and was the lover of one of them. And this, to us, was the reason for doing the whole picture, was to imagine going through these events together, and events that are part historical, part fiction. And people who manage to always find a reason to love life. A song they sing, they have to speak French, they have to sing in French, and this becomes their bedrock of how they get through everything. And over the course of the story, they're reunited, and the two guys have become fixers, one a doctor, one a lawyer, and they're fixers of last resort. They don't have a lot of money or resources, but they're good guys, they're good friends, and they'll try to help you out with any trouble you have. And they then rediscover their friend Valerie. So that's Burt Berenson, Christian Bale, Harold Woodman, John David Washington, and Valerie Vose, Margot Robbie. And my aspiration as a writer and a director with Christian, working on this over 5 years of meetings in a diner, and Margot was probably part of that for 3 or 4 years, and John David at least 18 months of that, is to see actors in ways you've never seen them before. That to me is my special effect. The special effect is the fun of seeing these characters and meeting them and wanting to hang out with them and wanting to spend time with them and see them face adversity with a great sense of humor and a great sense of love of life in spite of the trouble. And this is true in The Fighter. It's also true in Silver Linings. It's also true in Amsterdam. It's also true in Joy. I think all the films I've made have had people who are outsiders, whether it's The Fighter or Silver Linings. They're outsiders who are facing tough odds and are in very specific worlds, worlds that we create, worlds that I want to hang out in, worlds that are enchanting, worlds that, as a goer, as an audience of movies, I love when I go to a world that I want to hang out in and be in, and it's enchanting and specific. Whether it's Lowell outside of Boston in the 90s, or whether it's the 70s in New York with American Hustle, Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia, in the recent years, very specific neighborhood. This is Europe and New York over almost a 20-year period that feels contemporary, yet it's almost 80 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. But I love how contemporary it feels. So they discovered the time of their lives in Amsterdam, which asked the question, after they faced death and blood, and Valerie Vose literally took metal out of their bodies of Burt Berenson and Harold Woodman and made it into art, which was a whole new art movement at the time that made sense out of nonsense. History being the nonsense and madness that people couldn't make sense of. So they said, if we're going to make nonsense, we'll make our own beautiful nonsense that's fun. And Christian Bale always said his grandmother, her happiest time of her life was during the London Blitz. That's another war, a different time, but when they were being bombed in London. And he said, why? She said, well, you face death every day, so you managed to love what you loved and really appreciate it. Whether it was a cup of milk, a coffee, something to eat, a conversation with a friend, a joke. You know, your sense of humor gets better. You have a better, darker sense of humor. So these guys learn to sing and have a great time together. So my question is always, what's your Amsterdam? What makes you remember that life is always worth living, no matter how tough it gets? For me, it's a certain time we had where our dog a while ago ate a hamburger and also escaped our yard. And we also got stuck without electricity, yet we discovered things we'd never done before without electricity. We made candles and we played games with the kids and everybody that we hadn't done in years. And we probably got closer as a result of that. And these guys have a much more adverse circumstance in which they meet that bonds them. It's exciting for a filmmaker to have unknown history that feels shocking and amazing. That's a secret plutonium that a filmmaker has. And you're sitting on it, and you know your characters are going to go right into it. They're going to live through it and go out of it, and they're going to land in this situation. And the question is, what's going to happen? How are they going to survive while they're loving each other and still having a good time? Chivo Emanuel Lubezki, the cinematographer, chose a very large negative format that gave us a much bigger resolution and much bigger negative than normal. And that meant it could be appreciated in a lush, immersive environment that we were creating out of lush colors that made up the world and a feeling of the point of view of the characters. So you're always feeling this propulsive experience that's luscious and fun. It's fun to get all these actors together, and it's fun to see them be who they are. All the characters we like are funny, not because they're trying to be funny, just because of who they are. Baker, great name, yeah. Well, it's everything. We were all very excited to make the picture. We prepped it twice due to the pandemic, and we were excited. You know, it was like we were a band who really wanted to play together. And that included the whole cast, and it included Chivo, who went through 2 preps with us, 2 camera tests, Judy Becker, the designer, in collaboration. This is probably our 4th or 5th movie together. J.R. Hawbaker, our first, following Albert Wolski, who's a legend. He's in his 90s, and the pandemic presented great challenges for his safety. And so J.R. Hawbaker was honored to step in to help and create these looks, very specific looks, very specific. There's going to be a boutique because these are very original clothing that Valerie Vose, Margot Robbie wears. Burt Berenson, the doctor, Christian Bale, his look, John David Washington, Harold Woodman, his look, Robert De Niro, General Gil Dillenbeck. Robert De Niro was also involved in talking about this movie for over several years to create his character. The operator, Scott Sakamoto, the gaffer, Michael Bauman, these are all extraordinary artists and filmmakers. And Jay Cassidy is a filmmaker every bit as much as anybody else, and that includes the director. Jay's the editor, and the movie's made completely in post. Yes, it's made when you write it, and I wrote this script probably 20 times. It could be a novel over those 5 years with Christian. But by the time you finish making it, Jay Cassidy, we make the movie again in the edit room. And Jay is a very passionate filmmaker who's incredibly smart and loves the film as much as anybody involved in it does. And he's indispensable. I don't have enough words to say about him, about what he does in terms of making a movie better, challenging me. I like to be challenged. I think the best creative choices happen when you're challenged. Creative debate is a good, healthy debate. Christian was in the edit room a lot. So was Rami Malek. So was Margot Robbie. They were the ones who were probably in there the most. And Jay's always there. He lives with the movie. He takes it home. So I can't say how grateful I am for everybody who put the movie together.